Welcome back. And in the next few videos, we're going to take a look at how we can automate certain applications with UIA. And we're going to start with Chrome, specifically navigating in Chrome and also getting Chrome current URL. First, let's think about how we could go upon navigating inside of Chrome. We need to change the address, and then we need to trigger the navigation somehow. To change the address, we have two options available. We could do that with UIA, find this edit element right here and change the text. And the other option is using a Chrome hotkey. In Chrome, we have Control-L hotkey that activates the address bar, and we can simply use AHK to type out the address and then trigger the navigation by sending the enter key. We can, of course, do it even faster if we set this address into the clipboard and then send it with Control V and then send the enter. In this case, we can simply do Control L, then Control V, and then send enter. So this would be probably the fastest way to trigger the navigation in Chrome. And of course, we can do that with Control Send to avoid any keys being interspersed with any other programs. And I already have a small program written up in here. So this Chrome Navigate keyboard, this does exactly what I described. It takes an URL and it takes a window. If the window doesn't exist, then it throws an error. Otherwise, we save our current clipboard state, we empty the clipboard, and we set the clipboard to the target URL. Then we wait until the clipboard is filled with the target URL. Then we need to activate the Chrome window because unfortunately, Chrome doesn't allow navigation or setting the URL or sending keystrokes unless it's active. So here we do have to activate it. And then I use Control Send to first release all the extra keys or modification keys that might be in use. So for example, if I as an user were holding the Alt key down, then this releases the Alt key and all other modifier keys. It sends Control down, then L and V. So this would send Control L, Control V, and then we release the control button. And finally, we send enter to navigate. We also changed the key delay for Control Send because this makes it faster. So here I can show how this works. Let's try again. So Chrome window is activated and we see that the address bar flickers for a moment when the URL is sent. When we start testing this script though, then we find a few problems with it. First, under certain conditions, it doesn't work. It throws an error that no matching Chrome window was found. And after a lot of debugging, I found out that for some reason, this Win title sometimes gets a window that's title is totally empty. So here, it's better to also specify Google Chrome inside of it because all Chrome windows end with the words Google Chrome. So if this is present, then we know that we are dealing with an actual Chrome window. So this fixes one problem. And the second problem with this URL method is that if Chrome has saved some of these auto suggestions, then it might automatically recommend some kind of page already. For example, when I type out GitHub, it might already pre-fill something like this. And if I send enter when this recommendation is active, then it actually navigates to this page, not to the page we wanted to navigate to. This problem we can easily fix by adding a spacebar to the end of the URL. So if we wanted to send github.com, then we simply append a space at the end, because no URL can contain a space, and Chrome automatically removes this space. So with this, we can ensure that the auto suggestion isn't being navigated to. So we can simply add this to the end of the URL here when we assign it to the clipboard. And now two of the main problems are fixed, and this script works relatively stable. However, let's also try to see how we could do this with UIA. Let's first examine the Chrome webpage and see what we are dealing with exactly. So here we see that when we start coming from the top down, then first we get the document element, then we have the title bar, and then we have the panes, which at one point contain also the toolbar, which contains the address bar edit element. And we see that this pane is always at the end of the tree. This edit is named address and search bar. So we could find this using its name, or we could also find it by using its access key, because as we saw earlier, Control L focuses this edit element. What's bad about using a name for the condition is that the name can change depending on what the language the user is using. So in this case, it's in English, but if I were using some other language in my computer, then it might be something completely else. So this script wouldn't work in any other language. So this is something to keep in mind if you want to use this script in other computers as well. This problem doesn't come up with the access key, so we can safely use that method if we wanted to. So in this case, I already have, again, a function pre-made, which again activates the Chrome window, waits for it to be active if it's not active already. And then it tries to find an edit element. It gets an element from handle for the Chrome window, and then it finds an edit element and sets the edit element's value to the URL with a spacebar at the end. And finally, it uses Control Send to press the Enter key, again releasing all the modifier keys beforehand, because, for example, if we were to use the Alt Enter, then it opens actually in a new tab. So if the user was accidentally holding the Alt key while we were doing the Control Send, it would actually open in a new tab. Okay, so let's see how well this works. Simply replace this and it works pretty much the same. We see a little bit less flickering, but both of the methods work very fast. Of course, there is a consideration with using this method, because if we inspect the window again, then we see that the address bar is at the end of tree again. However, here we have a lot of different elements. And every time we use find element, then it will search the whole tree, or it will search all these elements before getting to the edit element. And we want to avoid that, because that will certainly take a long time. In this case, we can actually change the search direction. So here we see that if we started from the end instead of the beginning, then the edit element is almost, it's not the first one, of course, but it comes very quickly in the tree. So if we made a small modification, we can simply add index of -1 to this condition, in which case we get the last edit element, which means the search starts from the end instead of the beginning. And now if we try this we don't really see a difference, but with very large web pages or very complex web pages, we actually do see a difference. But we can optimize this function even further. So if we take a look at what we are doing here, every time we call Chrome Navigate, then we are getting the element from handle all over again. Even though if in a previous call we might have used this same element, so we are discarding it for no reason. What we could do is we could store this element in a variable. So we create a map that we store all the window handles in, and to the window handle we assign this element from handle. So this is pretty much caching this window element for future use. So if we call the function the first time, then the handle will be stored along with the element inside a map, and the next time we call it, then it already stored in the map, so we can get it from the map instead of getting the element all over again. And of course we can even go a step further. We don't actually need to store this element right here. We need to store the address bar element, because this also doesn't change. So for every window, there is only one address bar element, and we can store that in our map. So we don't even have to use find element. We can simply change the value and send enter. So this is what it might look like. So I have a new function, Chrome Navigate UIA faster, which again takes an URL and the win title, and it creates a static cache variable. This static variable means that this variable is not destroyed between function calls. So this is stored inside the function for all the calls of this function. We can simply check whether this cache map has the window handle, and if it doesn't, then we can try to store the edit element inside the cache. And we can also, when we do that, clean up the cache. So we check whether some of the windows have been destroyed in the meanwhile, and delete these elements from the cache, so we wouldn't store any unnecessary elements. And then finally, we try to get the element from the cache and set the value to the URL with a spacebar at the end. And then we send, of course, the enter key. So let's see how that works. And this time I didn't see almost any flickering at all. So it's nearly instantaneous. Yeah. This function actually has one more small modification compared to this function. So here we see that if the window isn't active, then we activate the window and wait for it to be active. But in this version, we use a function activate Chromium accessibility. So what this function does is it checks whether the Chrome window is visible. So if the Chrome window is visible, then we don't have to bring the window to the front with win activate, because accessibility is already in effect, and all the UIA elements should be still in effect. So if the window is not visible and we cannot get the Chromium document element, which also means that the accessibility isn't enabled, we can try to activate the accessibility by bringing the window, by making the Chrome window invisible, bringing it to the front, activating it, waiting for it to be active, and then sending the window back. So in practice, it works like that. So if the Chrome window is visible in the background, then the window isn't activated by WinActivate, but instead setting the value activates the window instead. With this, we avoid WinActivation call. This function isn't actually strictly necessary. It simply makes this a little bit more reliable, a little bit faster, but it's almost the same as using WinActivate method right here. So this is at the moment the fastest way to navigate to a new web page. And another good thing about it is that if we try to execute JavaScript from the address bar, so if I try to copy paste something with starting with JavaScript, then this JavaScript gets automatically deleted. So instead, if I wanted to send JavaScript, I would need to type out JavaScript and then send the paste command. So let's try this again. And we see that with this, we do get an alert box. However, sending keystrokes, even with set key delay set to this low, is still slow. And we can avoid that by using the UIA method, because setting the value doesn't delete the JavaScript from the address bar. This doesn't use any pasting at all. It simply super fast executes the JavaScript from the address bar. Okay, and for the next task, we're gonna try to get the current URL. So one option would be to use the same method to store the address bar element and then get the value from the address bar element. Another way is to see what the current value of the document element is. So if we inspect the window again and we take a look at the document element, then we see that the value of the document element is equal to the current URL of the page. And if we navigate it to somewhere else and inspect it again, then we see that the value changes since this is a new tab page. So we could also get this URL from the document element. So let's see how we would go upon doing that. Let's create another method, Chrome get URL, and this is gonna be the slow version. And we're gonna use the same arguments as the previous ones. And we are also gonna reuse these window activation methods. So win title is Google Chrome. Let's delete this for now. And let's also use the win wait active. Okay, so we can use element from handle and get the window element for Chrome, and then we can find element, the document element. And we want to return the document element's value. So let's try to return this. We use try because if something goes wrong, the Chromium isn't activated, then it might throw an error that an element wasn't found. So let's simply suppress these errors and try to get the value. So let's see how it works. Chrome get URL. So actually we don't need this argument here. Let's try to show it in a message box. So here we see that we get the URL just fine. Now let's think how we can optimize this further. Again, we can try to use the caching. So if we stored the document element inside a cache, then we might get the speed improvement from that. So we can copy and paste this. And let's reuse some parts of it. So we are going to use the static cache variable. Then if the cache doesn't have the handle available, then let's try to store the document element inside of it. And then finally, let's try to return the value for the element. So let's delete these and let's try to run it. And let's try putting this in a hotkey. So for example, F1 would get us the current URL. So pressing F1 and let's try this. However, it doesn't show us an URL. So what gives? Now it doesn't work. So why might this happen? This might happen because maybe the document element is getting destroyed, because every time we navigate to a new web page, we get a new document element. So let's see what happens if we try to only cache the window element, and then from that window element we every time find the new document element. Now this shows an URL, and this shows an URL as well. So this works. We can also open a new window and try it in this one. And again, we see that we get the correct URL regardless of which window we are currently looking at. Okay. So is there any way to get the document element directly? In this case, if we inspect Chrome with the UIA tree inspector, let's see what it shows us. So at the moment, it doesn't show us anything because Chrome isn't active. So let's activate this again and inspect this. So here we see that we have a render widget host, and for the other Chrome windows, we don't have a Chrome render widget host. So we can see that this actually represents the document element. And if we navigate to a new web page, then this document changes. So the question is the handle of this Chromium render widget host control always the same? So we could try that out by simply testing whether this method would work. So let's try to get the document control handle with control get handle. And we can use the same handle. And now we can try to use the control handle instead. So replace all these. And if it works correctly, this should already be the document element. So let's try to see whether this works. Okay, we got the correct URL. And when we navigate, it seems that the control handle is always the same. So even though the document element gets destroyed each time, then the control doesn't get destroyed. And we can indeed use it in multiple windows, and it works fine. Here I have another implementation of this that uses the same method. and it uses the activate Chromium accessibility function again, which actually already returns the control handle. So this uses pretty much the same method. It uses the control handle, gets the element for the control, and then tries to return the value. However, this activate Chromium accessibility function works in such a manner that we can also get the URL from a window that is currently hidden behind other windows. Because remember, when I showed the activate the Chromium accessibility method, then this function works in such a manner that it makes the Chrome window invisible. It brings the Chrome window to the top, activates the window to activate accessibility. Then it tries to get the document element handle. And once it exists, then we know that accessibility is enabled, and we can return by sending the Chrome window back to its previous position and making it visible again. So when I press F1, then very fast the Chrome window is brought to the front while invisible. Then accessibility is enabled because it's the topmost window, and we can get the document element from there. We can, for example, leave Chrome to the background, and we can create hotkeys for a background Chrome window. So I created two hotkeys. If the Chrome URL contains GitHub, then OMG becomes oh my GitHub. However, if it's a new tab window, then it retains its normal abbreviation. So we can try this, and we see that currently the window is a new tab window. And if we navigate to GitHub, then it actually returns the GitHub version. And we can use it here as well. And it works even faster because we don't have to activate the Chrome window since it's already active. And it's also faster if the Chrome window is even partially visible, because in that case, accessibility is also enabled. So these are a few methods to navigate Chrome, to get the Chrome URL, and similar methods also work in other browsers. However, usually they need slight modifications because, for example, the edit element isn't the last one in all browsers. Actually, in most browsers, it's at the top of the tree. So the search direction should be positive. And sometimes getting the document element is a bit trickier. For example, with Microsoft Edge, it doesn't return it that consistently. Okay, this is it for now. And in the next video, we're gonna see how we could automate DaVinci, the video editor. See you in the next one.